It's called the difference of two squares. It's just going to continue to come up as you progress through math, so I want to make sure that you learn it. So all they're asking you to do is factor two perfect squares. So an example of what that might look like is x squared minus 16. And so I can think about this in a couple of different ways. I want to know the two numbers that multiply to be negative 16 and then technically add up to be 0, because if I put a 0x in there, then they cancel each other out. So what two numbers are going to cancel each other out that multiply to be negative 16? And the answer to, well, we've got an x here, so x squared, so I know it's x and x. And the two numbers that multiply to be negative 16 that are going to cancel each other out are a positive 4 and a negative 4. And so x squared minus 16 factors to be x plus 4 and x minus 4. And so in general, the formula is that if you're trying to factor a squared minus b squared, it's equal to the quantity a plus b and then times the quantity a minus b. And you could put the negative one first. It makes no difference because it's just multiplication. So if I gave you n squared minus 81, well, I can think about it as two numbers that multiply this, that, or the other, or I can use this formula. And I can recognize that what did they square to get n squared? Well, they squared n. And what did they square to get 81? Well, 9. So I know it's going to be that one of them was n plus 9 and the other one was n minus 9. And so they might give you a problem like this: 4y squared minus 25. And so let's split this up. And so let's think about it. What did they square to get 4y squared? Well, what did they square to get 4 is 2. And what did they square to get y squared is y. So what did they square to get 4y squared? 2y. So 2y and 2y. And then what did they square to get 25? That's 5, so plus 5 minus 5. So that is the answer. If I were to multiply this out, I'd get 4y squared minus 10y plus 10y minus 25, and then those would cancel out and get what I want to get. So number 4 says 50 n squared minus 162. And so when you look at this problem, hopefully you notice that these are not both perfect squares. And so it could be that it's not factorable using this difference of two squares method, or it could be that there's a GCF. And so let's see, they're both even, so let's divide both of these numbers by 2. Let's factor a 2 out front. So when I factor a 2 out front, 50 divided by 2 is 25 n squared. And 162 divided by 2 is 81, so minus 81. So now these are both perfect squares. So what did they square to get 25n squared? 5n. So it's 5n and 5n. And what did they square to get 81? 9. So 9 and 9. So 5n plus 9, 5n minus 9. And what you can't forget, you're going to lose points on your IXLs if you forget this step, you have to put the 2 out front. So the whole entire final answer is 2 times 5n plus 9 times 5n minus 9. And then number 5 says 108 m squared minus 147. And so when I look at both of these numbers, they are not perfect squares. They're not even both even. So there is a GCF, but the GCF is not 2. So see if you can come up with the GCF. Well, I'll try maybe 3. 108 divided by 3 is 36. So if I take and I factor out a 3, I get 36 m squared. And then let's hope 147 divided by 3 is a nice number. 147 divided by 3 is 49. So that becomes minus 49. So I like these as far as perfect squares go. So I'm going to factor out a 3, and I'm going to get 6m and 6m. and then 7 and 7. So plus minus. So the final answer is 3 times 6m plus 7 times 6m minus 7. And then I'm going to throw in one more problem here. I don't remember if your IXL is going to throw this at you, but I don't want you to lose points for a silly reason. So if I had 4n squared minus 16, you might notice right off the bat, okay, this factors to be, because what do you square to get 4n squared? 2n and 2n. What do you square to be 16? 4 and 4. So you get plus, you get minus. But if you look, there's a GCF here. This is actually not the final answer because I can factor a 2 out of the first parentheses. And then I can actually factor a 2 out of the second parentheses. And so all of these things are getting multiplied together. You'll typically see them write the coefficients out front. So 2 times 2 in front of both of these parentheses. So that would be 4n plus 2n minus 2. And so what that means is that I could have factored out a 4 at the beginning, and then I would have been left with n squared minus 4, and so I would still get to the same answer. So if they have numbers like, I think, like 16, 64, if they have things in common, you might want to be making sure that your final answers are as factored as possible.